Welcome to Module 2, where we will be discussing coaching, setting the tone and building your team. The learning objectives for this module are: identify strategies to set pace for team, identify strategies to set standards for team, demonstrate fairness and trust with team. You'll be able to provide constructive coaching by following a 3-step process, and identify strategies to remain flexible with team. Let's review the 4F's framework. Be first. Set the pace, set the standard, set the mood. Be fair. Don't play favorites. Give credit where credit is due, and take the heat. Be firm. State the facts and reach an agreement. Explore solutions and explain consequences. And finally, be flexible. Assume the best, admit when you are wrong, and mix up your approach. Let's look at these 4F's frameworks more closely. Be first. How do I set the pace? First, we're going to model good behavior. Management, do as I say, not as I do, will not lead to a successful team. You must be an example for your team members to model themselves after. You are their leader. They look up to you for not only direction and answers, but how to speak with other members of management, your business etiquette style, your writing style, your body language, how you react to stress. These are all things that they'll be watching for. Whether your team realizes it or not, they're picking up subtle cues from you every day and will begin to implement those cues into their behavior. Make sure you are always modeling your best behavior. Next is communicate expectations clearly. This item is so important so that you do not set your team up for failure. If your team members do not have a clear set of expectations or direction, mistakes will be made. Mistakes, as we know, can be timely and costly and reduces productivity. Think ahead of what questions your team members may ask and address those ahead of time. After delegating or assigning a task, ask your direct report if they are clear on the expectations. Build that environment where asking for clarification is a positive thing. Next, develop a daily routine. No one wants to be limited to a strict, rigorous, minute-by-minute routine. However, establishing a workflow and general schedule provides stability, consistency, and again, helps clarify expectations. Your team will know, for example, that every Monday morning there's a staff meeting, or every Wednesday at 1 you'll have a team lunch and learn. This can be easily accomplished using a team calendar. So be first by setting the pace. Do this by modeling good behavior, communicating expectations clearly, and developing a daily routine. Next, how do I set the standards? Tell your team members what is important to you so they can respond to your expectations. Addressing what you want them to see out of a particular project or assignment leaves no room for a team member to later state that he or she was unsure of what you were looking for. What is important to you will become what is important to them. Next, create a mantra. Your team members will remember the message that you stress repeatedly and consistently. Create a mantra or a rhyme. That popular ones among the corporate workplace are: be proactive, not reactive, or if you're on time, you're late, and if you're early, you're on time. Next, establish expectations with your reactions. Do not have reactions to behaviors that are expected or acceptable. This sets the bar at the standard line. Any behaviors that exceed expectation deserve praise and reward. Any behavior that is less than acceptable, correct or reprimand. Let's move on to the next F in the 4F's framework. Be fair. How do I demonstrate fairness? Do not play favorites. This seems pretty straightforward. However, most managers admit to playing favorites even when they don't necessarily mean to. Let's face it, in every group of individuals, there will be some personalities that are more agreeable with your own. These people can easily become your go-to person. New leaders need to actively practice not to let favoritism get in the way of effective leading. A few ways to do this are cross-training. If all of your associates are able to perform the same task, this eliminates a way to pick a go-to person for a specific job. Next, utilize your subordinates' backgrounds as a means to justify. For instance, Cindy will be handling the budget work this quarter as she has background in accounting. And finally, allow for opportunity. For instance, let your team know Alice will be responding to this customer review because she has succeeded at a similar task in the past. Would anyone else like to respond to these reviews in the future? Next, give credit where credit is due. Make your team members feel valued by giving credit where credit is due. During a brainstorming session, a young intern comes up with a great idea for client retention. When you take this suggestion up to your manager, make sure you are vocalizing who the idea originally came from. Your team members will appreciate your transparency, and your higher-ups will notice that you are accountable for not only yourself, but the development of your team. As well as not giving credit where credit is due, you must also not place blame. As a leader, it is your responsibility to take the heat. Your team members are following your direction, and you are responsible for them. When a mistake is made, take ownership for your team and do not place blame on an individual associate, which can lead to scapegoating. Instead, give everyone the benefit of the doubt, consider all factors, and work constructively as a team to address the mistake. All of these actions will help you build trust with your subordinates. When they see your integrity as a leader who does not play favorites and place blame, and your transparency to give credit where credit is due, trust forms between leader and team member. The next F in the 4F's framework is be firm. This is the part of the framework that new management struggles with the most when they're asking themselves, how do I be firm with direct reports? Leaders want to be respected and liked by their teams, but these two wants can cause conflict. 1. State the facts. Have examples of the behavior ready to discuss and be able to explain why it needs correction. 2. Get an agreement from the associate that there is a problem. And 3. Focus on solutions. Be ready to tell them specifically what you didn't like and what you would rather see them do next time. Ask them to verbalize it back to you, and ask them how they feel about the solution. Don't forget to let them know what they are doing well. The last F in the 4F's framework. How do I demonstrate flexibility? Not everyone will learn everything the same way, at the same speed, or by the same method. As a leader, you need to be flexible to accommodate all of your teams. The first way to do this is to assume the best. This is key for long-term learning and positive connection in the workplace. It is a strategy similar to positive reinforcement. When you assume your associate does his or her best and they do not meet this criteria, they will begin to realize the expectations you have without you actually having to voice them. Their behavior will mold to your assumptions, and the new normal will be whatever your expectations are. Next, admit when you are wrong. This is similar to the tips on how to be fair that we just discussed. Place credit where credit is due, do not blame others, and admit when you have made a mistake. Always follow up on discussing how the mistake was made and what remediations will be in process so the mistake is not made again in the future. This shows your team members that you are just as human as they are. It also shows that you are honest, transparent, and want to continually develop yourself to do better, just as you want your team to. Lastly, remain flexible by mixing up your approach. Recognize that there are different types of learning and personalities in your group. Make sure that you are providing a balance to each. When approaching a new task, take into account a different way to present the information to your team. For example, visual learners would prefer a presentation. Other learners could simply listen to instruction and understand what the task has ahead. while kinesthetic learners would benefit from a trial run and getting hands-on with the task. Also on your team, you most likely have a mix between introverts and extroverts. Introverts can sit at a desk all day, typing away diligently until it's time to leave, whereas extroverts can be found networking with other departments, walking down the hall to speak with someone face-to-face rather than sending an email. Make sure you keep these different characteristics in mind to keep a good balance. Now that we've explored the 4F's framework more closely, you should be able to identify strategies to set pace for the team by modeling good behavior, communicating expectations clearly, and developing a daily routine. You should be able to identify strategies to set standards for the team. Tell them what is important to you, create a mantra, and establish expectations with your reactions. You should also be able to demonstrate fairness and build trust with your teams by not playing favorites, giving credit where credit is due, and taking the heat when needed. You should be able to provide constructive feedback by following a 3-step process, which includes stating the facts, getting an agreement that there is a problem, and focusing on solutions. You should be able to identify strategies to remain flexible with your team. This includes assuming the best, admitting when you are wrong, and mixing up your approach, keeping in mind different learning and personality types. Thank you for reviewing this module. Please proceed to the next task in module